Hi friends, this is Sarah from Crafting and Relaxing. Welcome. I'm so glad to have my crafty friends with me, whether you're brand new or you've been here since the very beginning. This morning I'm going to do a tutorial on a card holder. I had a Saturday morning chat where I showed you what I was working on and people said, okay, I want to see a tutorial. I'm not going to share the Bliss collection as a whole, the cards that I've made in this video. I'll do a separate one just because it'll get so long. As I mentioned in my other video, this was the original design and I'll link to her video. This was a little wide for me. It just felt a little sloppy and I wanted to tighten it up a little. And then what I settled on is this one. There's a little border around the edge, but not enough for them to flop back and forth. And then there's just a tiny bit at the top, you'll notice. So this is for A2 size cards, which are 5.5 by 4 1/4, and they're matching envelopes. If you wanted to go bigger, we would need to adjust the measurements. In her video, she said you could put 5 cards and 5 envelopes. What I did, I couldn't resist, you guys. It just happens. I forgot that I had this chipboard in the collection and I wasn't going to let it go to waste. So what I've done here is I have a card with chipboard and dimension on it, and then a flat card, and then 2 envelopes. And I did the same thing on each side. I don't know if these are the 4 cards that I will give the recipient in the end, because I have other ones and I'm still making some, but I just wanted you to see the idea. You'll notice right here in the center, there isn't an edge on either of these flaps. You could use this centerpiece to do that. I'll talk about it later, but I like the way this is. I think this travels nice. Let me tell you about my cover and different options, because there are so many options on how you could do this. I decorated mine so that, quite frankly, I can smash it flat, put it in my suitcase. You could use much bigger dimension flowers. The flowers I was making before actually would have worked a little better, but they didn't match. And I just got this new die. I'll show you the package if I can find it. Oh, if you guys could see my room, it's crazy. I have alcohol inks set aside. I have all kinds of stuff set out to do more videos, but this is taking me longer than I planned. Okay, this is layered blossom flowers, clear stamp and metal die set. That's the Tuesday morning number. I thought for $4.99 this was a great value. There's another die somewhere in this room. So you get the 3 dies, the 3 stamps, and a sentiment that says, wishing you the best day ever. And I just picked this up yesterday at Tuesday morning, so it's going to be a couple days maybe by the time you see this video. But I thought those were really cute. I don't have a lot of flower dies. I've been borrowing them from friends and stuff. The one thing that I thought was weird was it doesn't cut out the center, so I had to do that. And I was like, why did I buy a die if I have to cut it out? So see that? Right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I had to snip those with my scissors. I guess the advantage to that down the road is if you want, when you punch it out, it's still attached to your paper, so you could use that as your background. I don't know, but I was kind of annoyed because I had visions of doing millions of them, and then I would be snipping 6 times. But then what I realized too is you don't have to worry about how they look on the big one for sure, because it doesn't really show. It's only on the small one that it really matters if you do a nice job. You could do a dimensional flower. Sabrina K, I think her channel is Sabrina K Crafter. She did just recently a lace flower, and I was like, what would you use that on? And of course then we came up with ideas. That would be really cool on this, on a ribbon or a belly band, because then the person could reuse it, and flower and lace and fabric wouldn't get as crushed in shipping. If you're going to make paper flowers, dimensional paper flowers, and put them on the outside of something, to make sure they look good when they get there is tricky. This will be smashed by the time I get to where I'm going, but I'll fluff it up and hand it to the person, so it'll work fine. You could also use ribbon. I thought about putting like a nice thick ribbon like this, gluing it right here, and then I could put a magnet or tie a bow. The person whose video I'll link to that made this originally, she used ribbon as an enclosure. If you're not sure what a belly band is, essentially you would take a piece of cardstock. This one would probably be too thin. This one would be about nice for the scale of this. Score it right here, or just fold it with a ruler, however you want to do it. So you would, this is 1/2 inch and this is 1/2 inch. So you would measure it, and then essentially I'll just crimp this and show you. So a belly band, you would fold this over. You would glue this part right here, and then I would have put my flower and stuff on this belly band, right? I mean, that's super cute. I just didn't do that. There's pros and cons. I'm sure I'll do some with belly bands, especially since I've already folded this one perfectly. So however you want to do it, ribbons, belly bands, leave it. If you want it to be more secure or a little more formal, then I would use a belly band or a ribbon. If I had the corresponding washi tape, I would go up and down this side to make it a little more secure. There's all, or sturdy, I mean, there's all sorts of ways to change this up. I'm going to show you the basics. If you make them and you share them on Instagram, be sure and tag me at Craftin' Relaxin', no G's, no and. I would love to see what you do with it. As promised, I made the template to show you. I would not in any way write on my paper, okay? If I was just doing this for myself, this is for my crafty friends so they can see. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to cut a piece of paper 8.5 by 11. If you buy your paper 8.5 by 11, then you're already done with that step, okay? Keep in mind, this is not a directional pattern. This will work great. This is a directional pattern. If you want your butterflies to be right side up, you have a situation here, okay? I did one where, I've made a couple of these, so I'm confused now. Okay, this was a double-sided piece of paper. The outside was not directional, it was plain. The inside had butterflies. Oh, see, I thought that guy was going to show. See down there? There's one on the inside of the flap that's upside down. So if you want to use a paper that's directional in any way, that probably should be the inside. Let me show you why. If this is the inside and you fold this up, those upside down butterflies won't show. If this is the outside and you fold this up, on the inside, your butterflies will be upside down. If that bothers you, then think it through and plan for it and don't use that paper in that manner. If it doesn't bother you, then you're fine. Just go on with your day and have upside down butterflies. If it was butterflies, I think I'd be okay. Maybe trees or something, I would not be okay with upside down trees. What I did to remind myself when I made this one is I just took a piece of this purple tape and stuck it on here and wrote inside, so that as I made it, I didn't mess up and forget that. I'm sure I would have noticed an upside down butterfly, but maybe not. So you're going to cut your paper to 8.5 by 11, and you can see I've marked the edges here. This one's a little less busy, but it's harder to see. Then we'll go on to this one. I'm going to show you this template, and then I'm going to make one so different types of people can absorb the information and have it. I'm going to take this and I'm going to freeze it right on this screen for a little bit so that you have this. If this doesn't make sense yet, then when you watch the video, you could always go back to this section and see this screen and have all the measurements. Okay, so the first thing is you're going to cut a piece of paper 8.5 by 11, and you're going to figure out what's the top and the bottom. Then you're going to score both sides, I'm calling these the sides, the ends essentially, at 1/4 and 1/2 inch. Now, I don't know that you can see any of that right here. I have a score line here and a score line here on both ends, okay? The sequence that you score in does not matter. The fact that I numbered these, you do not have to do them in this way. It's just the way it was sitting in my scorer. Then score the center at 5 1/4 and 5 3/4. You'll notice I had to go over this when I narrowed the item the first time from here, I lost it already, you guys, down to this size. I forgot to move the center over the first time, right? That's how we ended up with this item. Score at 5 1/4 and 5 3/4, and keep in mind, don't forget to adjust your measurements if you start playing with it. and take it and make it your own. You might like a different style. Then you're going to move your paper around in your scoreboard, and you're going to score at 6 inches and 6 1/4 down from the top. And again, be sure you're watching your direction of your paper and thinking about where the bottom is going to be, because at this point you're deciding on this piece of paper where the bottom is. Okay, this is the bottom, the fold line for the flap. When you were scoring the ends, you were still fine, you hadn't committed, but right now you've committed. Unless you score it and then you say, oops, you could always just flip it around and have those score lines and pretend you wanted them that way. The world would not end. Then we're going to start cutting. And what we do is we take this section out completely, all the way down to the bottom line. Okay? And then we do that on both sides, take that section out, and then in the very center, we take this piece out just down, just this top line. So if you're starting at the bottom and you're going up, you're going to the second line. Maybe that's how you can think about it. Both times you're going to the second, but it's a different second that you get to. If you wanted a flap in the center, think this through and don't cut this piece off, okay? This is what I'm talking about right here. You could use this section to make a flap on only one side. You'd have to pick one of these, just like is on the end. I don't know. I might try it in the future and see if I like it. It depends on if you'd rather have it more structured and sturdy, or if you'd rather have both sides matching perfectly. Okay, then take your scissors and miter the first 1/4 inch score line. So you're just gonna trim off this little black section right here on both ends. Now, if you do it all the way in on the 1/2 inch on both of those sections, you're going to end up with angled tips on your pockets, okay? I did not like that. So that is why I said just score the first 1/4 inch. There's no world where I'm going to cut both of those exactly the same. And this, oh, that bothered me. Is that weird? So now I'm just going to walk you through it and we're going to do it. I have another piece of paper of the Bliss collection right here that I'm going to back up, that I'm going to use. See, this will be cute. A floral on one side, a stripe. If you have double-sided paper, oh, sorry, I didn't cover that. Double-sided paper would be the most fun for this, but be sure it's a nice thick product. If you have a nice thick paper, you won't decorate it with layers of cardstock. So you could do this with either, you could make it with cardstock, like 100 pound would be like super, super sturdy, okay, or 110. And then you could just decorate with embellishments and have solid paper. That would be totally fine, okay? Or you could use a single-sided cardstock and just leave the inside plain, whatever paper you have. But if it's a thinner paper, you're going to want to cut panels of paper to go on top of it and maybe use sturdy adhesive to help give it some structure, right? You could cut a panel for the front. You could even do a little strip over here and over here. I just used thicker paper from the start to make it easy. But I'm not going to use this piece from the Bliss collection because it's short. It's not 8.5 inches tall. And if you have a piece of paper that just doesn't quite make the 8.5, you could shorten your flaps, right? So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to modify it in a different, on my own. I didn't want to do that with you guys watching, but if you have a piece of paper you really want to use, you do have that option too. So I'm going to use this one because it's very sturdy, and quite frankly, I think this side is pretty ugly. So I'm going to use this as the inside of my card holder. This side doesn't have a whole lot of excitement going on, but imagine this decorated with a bunch of flowers and ribbon, and it would be gorgeous. I'm thinking of it more as a neutral backdrop than a really decorated piece of paper. I have to use this big cutter because you know about my blade woes. Since I don't care which way the stripes go or any of that, I'm just going to cut this quick and not talk you through it because I know you know how to cut paper. And if you don't, well, let me know and we'll make videos on that. And this is my EK Tools scoreboard, which I got last year and was super excited about. Made a video about a couple things. I mostly got this because I like to make envelopes. I went for probably 20 years without a scoreboard and the world did not end. So you do not need to run out and buy one. If you want to make this item without a scoreboard, you're going to want to probably find a metal ruler in your house, and maybe you could use a pencil and fold and score. It's going to be harder, but it would be possible. What I've done, oh, this is one of my weird tricks, you guys, and we've talked about this before. The whole make your tools your own. I'm going to try and get you some more light. My scoreboard, I took a Sharpie and marked 4 1/4 and 5 1/2, because if you're a card maker and you make a lot of A2 cards, those are important measurements, and I got tired of stopping to look. Today, I've taken, I don't know what this red piece of tape is. Maybe you guys remember from a different video. Today, I've taken washi and gone across and marked all of these score lines that we need for this project, because I've been making a couple of them this week and I plan to make more. So I want to keep my board marked, but I don't want every project I ever make marked in Sharpie on my board. So that's why I use the washi. And you can see I wrote card holder, and I have a black Sharpie line at 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch. Then I have one where I wrote the word middle, and I'm doing the middle scores in one color and the bottom in the other. Be careful, I messed that up once before, so use 2 colors there for sure. I'm going to go 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch. If you mess up your scoring, it is not the end of the world. You haven't cut. You can just have extra creases. Then I'm going to do 1/4 inch. You notice I just flipped the paper around so I didn't have to go out there and, oops, talking and working, figure out other measurements. I'm using my Teflon bone folder. Pretty sure it's Lawn Fawn. This was a splurge, you guys. Again, you don't need this. You can go your whole life. If you use this yellow one that comes with it, don't use the tip. Be really careful. Tip it down, more horizontal, so that you don't stab through your paper, because that one is narrower and sharper. That's why I'm using this one. But I used that one for a while and it was fine. Okay, now I'm going to look here and I'm going to go and do the middle. Okay, so I'm going to score the middle at 5 1/4. Just drag it down. And 5 3/4. Same thing, drag it down. Now you can see why I did a colored template for you, because it is just so hard to see. And the light is reflecting off of the paper, which is making it hard for you too. So I'm going to use this as my bottom. So you go 6 and 6 1/4 down from the top. So if this is my bottom, this will be my top. And then I'm going to go 6 inches, score, 6 1/4. Now, we've had the conversation before about which way up should you put your paper when you're scoring. Technically, it should be the opposite of the way you're going to fold it. So I should have put the inside up when I did all of these. Okay, I don't think the world will end. Is that right? No, actually, oh, I did score it right. You're supposed to put right side up when you're scoring. Something about breaking down the fibers. Some of you know, you can tell each other. You know that I'm just not that picky. This is supposed to be relaxing. If it's not, we shouldn't be doing this. So, some things I just don't worry about. So I've done all my scoring. If you look here, we cut it, we scored it, we scored it, we scored it. Now we're ready to cut out the side sections. And this is obvious, right? What you're doing is you're removing this piece right here because you had an extra piece down here so you could fold it and glue it. Cutting this length here with shorter scissors, it's just not really a skill I have, let's be honest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip the insides at that bottom score line, just like this shows, okay? Bottom score line. I'm going to use my smaller scissors too. Then I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to clip it at that bottom score line, okay? I'm going to do more of my clipping right now with my scissors and then switch to my cutter. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I've cut, I'm clipped. Then I'm going to clip this bottom piece out. And we're going to go to the second line as we're cutting along. So that's that very top, the 6 inch line. You're going to go to the 6 inch line. snip. Then turn that sucker sideways. Depending on how thick your cardstock is, this is a hard part, so make sure you have some neat little scissors. And then just trim it out. If you're really good with your cutter, you could trim it out. That part's going to show a little, so you do want it to be tidy. Some of these other parts don't show as much. Okay. Also, while I have my scissors in hand, I'm going to miter these corners. Now remember, we just want to miter. Miter is angle it, so when you fold it up, it's nice. Quilters do it. When we're folding paper over, it really helps so it's not lumpy or it doesn't show. I'm just going to do that first 1/4 inch section, remember. So I'm going to go angle, and this isn't going to show at all as long as you just do the first 1/4. So it doesn't matter if it's pretty. It doesn't need to be a 45. We're not going to draw it. We're not going to check it. We're just going to trim it. Here and here. Now I noticed this one, I got this a little crooked, so I'm going to straighten that out on that score line, because that part will show a little bit too. Same here. Cutting and talking. Okay, so you can see the bottom, I'm starting to have a little flap. This piece is gone. Now, I would use a cutter if I was you, or a nice long pair of shears. And again, I'm using this big cutter that I'm less familiar with, so we'll see how this goes. I'm going to turn on the light, hope that doesn't blind you. This is the Caterpillar Crop. It is the nice big, it's kind of like the Cadillac of cutters. It's a little heavy though. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut down this line. I'm going to zoom you the other way a little bit. I'm going to cut down the line. I'm not going to try to get right to my snip. I'm perfectly happy finishing that part with scissors. I just want a nice straight cut. Okay, and I can see that I have a tiny bit of my score line, so I'm going to scooch that over and trim that off. And then I'm just going to leave that for a second while I flip this over and do the other end. And again, you can use your scissors. If you're like an amazing seamstress or something and you cut fabric all the time perfectly straight with scissors, then you do not need to get out your cutter. Okay, then I'm just going to take my scissors, snip, snip. So I'm going to put my inside up. You'll figure that out in a minute. Folding is like scoring. It doesn't really matter which ones you do first, but I think if you make a whole bunch of these, you'll start to figure out which ones are more convenient. Okay, so I did the bottom, the bottom. You can use a bone folder if you have one. Be gentle, a little bit gentle with your paper so you're not cracking it, depending on the thickness of it and the quality of it. If your edges crack, like mine cracked a tiny bit right there, I don't know if you could see it, you could put washi tape on it and pretend you wanted it that way. I didn't have the corresponding washi and it wasn't too bad, so I just left it. Okay, so I'm just crisping up that bottom section is what I'm doing with my bone folder. Like right here, I've got a weird spot in the middle. This is not a folding tutorial, so I hope you're not picking up bad habits from me. Okay, now I folded the ends. Now these little flaps, that's actually what you're going to put your glue on, okay? The ends, you do want to crisp up a little bit. You want to make those nice and square and sturdy because they form this section right here, which is pretty much the trickiest part of this project, to get it looking nice and both sides matching. Anytime you're doing things that should match each other, you're at risk, right? Okay, now, oops, I forgot to score the middle, you guys. That's funny. Okay, I'm gonna go like this. I hadn't scored it very well, so I'm just trying to loosen it up. There we go. Depending on your scoreboard or your pressure, you know, sometimes you want to go back and forth once or twice, but I didn't want to crack the paper, and this isn't, if I had a big batch of paper, I would have an idea of the quality of the paper and how much pressure I should apply, but I hadn't used this paper. Did you see it was from 2006? Don't have a lot of it. So there's our spine, essentially, of our card holder. Here are our bottoms. I'm going to use art glitter glue. You can use tiny, tiny score tape. There are advantages to each, okay? If you use the score tape, it's on there and it's done. You could stick your cards in it and run out the door, okay? So that would be one advantage to it. It doesn't allow you to adjust. Once you close that sucker up, you're done. So I had a couple where I had to like take them apart and put tape back on them again because they weren't straight enough and it made me crazy. I'm gonna try art glitter glue because I'm willing to hold it for a moment. And what I wanna do is close the jacket up and hold these two together so that they square up nicely. I hadn't tried that and I want to try it. So all you need is a tiny amount of glue right here on this fold. Be sure you put it on the side that's actually gonna touch. And because I'm trying to line up both, I'm gonna do both at the same time, which might be a little crazy, but art glitter glue is forgiving and it'll let me wait a sec. Now, the trick is just fold it in, lay it down, look at it and get it as straight as you can. You want that bottom corner to be square. You don't want any of your interior showing. I just use my fingernail and line it up. Then you can use a bone folder or a ruler or a pair of scissors. Just be careful they're not too sharp. I'm going to stab through. And set that. Then do the other side real quick because if you're using art glitter glue, you're on a timeline, right? If you put this stuff on each side, you're not so much on a timeline and you would do one end at a time. Okay, now they look okay, but when I fold it up, I notice this one is sticking out a little more. So I'm gonna put that right there and I'm happy with it. Now see, this is picky, I know, but do you see that little tiny nick right there where I cut into the second section at the end? That's what I'm talking about. But see how my bottoms are nice and square and those other ones had weird chopped triangles out of them? Okay, now I'm just going to set this aside and I'm going to put a bone folder on that bottom flap like this. Can you see that right there? And I think I have an extra bone folder. No, it's not thick enough to put pressure. I'm going to put it right here. I'm going to lay it down. And then I'm going to put this other one right on top of it. And just hold it like that. And then that's it. I'm going to let that dry. And then I'll come back to it and decorate the cover and do whatever I need to do with it. I think that these are great for gifts, gift packs, anytime you're trying to do maybe craft fairs, that sort of thing. If you are making thinner cards and not using chipboard or a bunch of foam mount, you could really fit more stuff in there. And depending on your personal needs or style or what you're making, you could change this width right here. You could also do the same idea with chipboard or cereal boxes or that kind of thing. Okay, you guys have a great day. Thanks so much for watching. Please be sure and give me a thumbs up on this video. And if you haven't seen that I have a giveaway going, go back in my old videos and take a look. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.